Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Hey, the last update of the packet that you sent out, I'm not seeing an attachment on that. Do you have that in front of you and the ability to resend it to me?
Uh,
May-
Not at the moment, but I do know that if you go online to the website where it shows where the meeting date and everything is, it has the packet included. Walter's been wanting me to keep posting that, so I did have it posted there before I left work.
Oh, good, because I couldn't even find the agenda. So,
Right here. Let me do. Where's my sent? To let me. Right. All right. I'm trying to forward it to you right now.
thank you.
Send.
All right, I've got it on the website too.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul.
No problem.
Hey, my computer's acting up. I'm going to reboot this whole thing and rejoin the meeting. I should be able to be back on by 6.
Gotcha.
I need to get a pen. Be right back.
Oh, I left something in the dryer. Sorry, Walter. we're we're like kids. What can we say? Oh, I need to take notes. Walter left. 25, 3.64 gigabytes. Clean the glasses.
Good evening. Let's see. Matt is still trying to reboot his computer, it looks like. So we'll give him a minute or two. Incidentally, I only have 5:59, so I guess we're not that far off yet. There's Tim. Good evening, Tim. What's the board's preference? Do we want to wait for Matt, or do we at least want to start with the pledge?
Might as well start, and we could
Yeah,
say he came in after the meeting started, whatever.
okay. Well then, to that point, as chair of the Northwood Select Board, due to COVID-19 coronavirus crisis and in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, we're authorized to meet electronically. There's no physical location, but in accordance with the emergency order, we are providing public access by telephone with additional possibilities that includes YouTube and Zoom. Notice of how you access the meeting was on the website. So you can go to the town website, or you can look in the meeting notice itself. The mechanism for alerting us if there's a problem with the public accessing this meeting is to call 603-340-5711 or email Paul at Allard, I'll spell it out, Pallard at town.northwood.nh.us. And we will adjourn the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. All votes will be taken by roll call. I'm going to start with a roll call for attendance. Matt.
Present.
Beth.
Here.
Thank you. Tim.
Here.
Pam.
Present.
And I'm Hal Kreider. I'd like now everybody to rise, face the nearest flag, and pledge the allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, Pam, you came through loud and clear. You must have some practice at school doing that.
Once or twice.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move on to Citizens Forum. Does anybody want to speak? Or Matt, did we get any input from emails?
Not that came to the Citizens Forum.
Okay, well, that's the venue. So, Walter, did you want to say something?
I received no email.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then we're going to move right on to ongoing business. Let's discuss the meeting minutes from April 27th. Does anybody want to make any points or edits before we have a motion to approve it? I'm not hearing any, but I do have one. If you take a look at page 7, line 30, this has to do with the discussion regarding funding the Lake Coast program for Harvey Lake. I am pretty certain we said we were going to come back to this after the vote, not after the deliberative session.
I just caught that when I read it. Yep, you're right, Hal.
Yeah, so that would be one edit that I would like to see. Does anybody have any others? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes with the edit that I just mentioned?
So moved. Nice job, Paul.
And second, please.
Second.
Second, thank you. Any further discussion? If not, roll call vote. Matt.
My computer was giving me a whole bunch of trouble today, and I have to tell you that I wasn't able to read them. I'm going to abstain from the vote.
Okay, that's fine. Beth.
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
Pam.
Yes.
And Hal is yes. Thank you. We're now going to move on to the review of the town investment policy. This is the first time we're reviewing this. And I believe Cheryl's online, so we're going to ask her to come on the screen and go over this with us, please. Cheryl?
Hello. Hello. I think actually Walter put this one together. I did the purchasing and accounts payable policy, which you'll
My-
be reviewing afterwards.
My apologies.
That's okay.
Walter, do you want to do this one then?
I will be more than happy. So, good evening. So the town has had a investment policy, which is required by statute. And again, this has to do with funds that are basically held by the treasurer, not dealing with funds that are related to trust funds or capital reserve funds, et cetera, or perpetual care funds. These are funds that are held by the treasurer and mostly are contained in the general fund and any of the special revenue funds that we have. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. To the best that I can tell, the town has had a investment policy in draft form for a number of years, but I didn't find anywhere, and I confirmed this with Sandy, that it was ever approved. So I'm not sure we're actually amending or adopting a new policy, but going forward, we certainly will be, hopefully adopting this one after the next meeting, and we can cast this in stone, because this is one of the things that's reviewed by the auditors every year to make sure, number one, that it exists. If it's been updated or modified, amended, that they review it, and that we show them the minutes of the meeting that the board actually did take time to review it to see if they wanted to make any changes. So that will become an annual occurrence, just to either concur or amend the policy once it's adopted. So just to touch on some of the highlights, obviously, there's certain guidelines that the town has to abide by in order to stay in, conforming with the statutes in terms of risk and so forth, which basically surrounds what they call the prudent investor rule. So we can't take this money and go to Vegas and gamble it, hoping that we're going to get better returns than the local bank or the New Hampshire Deposit Insurance Program. So we have to be prudent in terms of the way that the money is actually invested. The money also has to be secured. As you know, we often maintain balances in excess of $1 million. Typical banks only insure through the FDIC up to $250,000. So there's other security and collateral that's prepared by the bank, and those are listed on page 2 of our proposed draft of the investment policy. And it talks about different instruments. They can be money market deposits, certificates of deposit, sweep accounts, which is when at the end of the business day, the bank takes the money and invests it and then returns it basically in the morning to our account. And those can be secured and deposited with repurchase agreements, which is part of the sweep process, and also through U.S. government securities. So we address collateralization here. We address the actual financial institutions that can be utilized. They do have to be federally insured banks chartered under the laws of the state of New Hampshire, or they have to be chartered under the laws of the federal government that have a branch within the state of New Hampshire. Or the third option is the Public Deposit Investment Fund, which was established under New Hampshire statute. Moving on, again, internal controls are very similar to what we have in our cash management policy. It talks about the finance directors responsible for establishing and maintaining the internal controls. The town administrator is responsible for ensuring that separation of transaction authority from an accounting standpoint of view and record keeping is maintained, and that the Board of Selectmen have established an annual process for independent review of the investment function, that the review will provide internal controls by assuring compliance with established policies. And that's typically done through the audit process. That's how the Board of Selectmen get out of their review, other than looking at the policy each year. As I mentioned, the prudence includes investments will be made with care and judgment under circumstances then prevailing, which persons of prudence, discretion, and intelligence exercise the management of their own affairs, not for speculation. As I mentioned, no Vegas trips. And so, and obviously it ties back into an ethical position that we're all, you are all bound to under your elected position. And finally, it talks about the review of the policy, which will be reviewed by the Board of Selectmen and the Treasurer on an annual basis, and when there's a change in key personnel. And we list the key personnel in one of our appendices, which talks about changes in the Board of Selectmen, importantly, changes in Treasurer, changes in the Finance Director, and so forth, so that everybody that comes on board that might be new would become familiar with the policy, so that there's no question about what can be done with these funds from a management standpoint of view. And so on an annual basis, probably around this time or, around June 1st or whatever, we will bring this up for review and have a discussion about any thoughts or changes in the policy, and then move forward and just concur that it is still valid and the wishes of the board going forward for the next year. And that basically summarizes the policy. As I said, there's a couple of appendices that list the key personnel. It also, excuse me, lists the funds that we have here in the town of Northwood: the general fund, the conservation fund, the recreation revolving fund, the lagoon fund, the forest maintenance fund, the ambulance fund, the special detail fund, cemetery fund, capital projects fund, and escrow funds. So that's the draft. We also have an exhibit that talks about a number of the New Hampshire institutions that meet the criteria in terms of the federal insurance and so forth that's required. And that's the story.
So, questions, anybody? Matt?
So more of a comment just in terms of making sure that everyone fully understands what we're talking about in terms of those watching at home and taxpayers. These low risk investments tend to be fairly low rate of return in terms of interest rates. So we're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars here that are going to be put back into the coffers. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear that the investments that we are in a position to make, it's going to be a fairly low level of return, but I do think it's best practice to certainly be doing it. And I appreciate having a new policy to guide it.
Well, Al, I'm going to ask a related question because Walter mentioned Las Vegas, but since Mohegan Sun is a little bit closer and we wouldn't have to have as big a risk carrying all that money back, does that qualify? Is that one of the items on your list there?
Check the
He's
policy.
joking, people. He's joking.
I thought we could get on that cat boat up in Portland and go out in the ocean, international waters.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry for the digression, but it does relate to the banks and institutions. That has to be updated every year, Walter?
Yeah, typically we just review it as part of the review process to see if any have a lot of times either merged or they don't usually go out of business, but there could be some new ones that might be added.
Does the municipal association help us with that, or do we have to do it on our own?
Usually we can reach out to the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association,
Okay.
or the Municipal Association.
Other questions on the policy? If not, then Walter, this goes back on the agenda for a second reading and action next meeting.
Yes.
Okay, very good. I see now, this was set up in the agenda this way. Okay, so thank you for that, Walter. Are we ready to move on to the purchasing and accounts payable policies?
I'm ready if you are.
Okay, go ahead,
Okay.
Cheryl.
All right. I'm presenting the purchasing policy and its administrative rules that goes with it and the accounts payable policy together because they're so closely related. So start looking at the purchasing policy first. And the purpose and objectives are to establish a purchasing policy to ensure financial control, transparency, and accountability, and give vendors an equal opportunity to do business with the town. The next section is a list of definitions that you're going to find throughout the document. I'm not going to read all of those. The purchasing categories that I have listed here are the same category levels and that are in the existing policy, but I've given a little more operational detail and clarity in each category than was in the original policy. So I haven't changed a lot of the content. Category 1 is for purchases up to $499.99, and department heads can purchase these amounts of purchases directly with no prior approval beyond the department head, and they need to be using the paper purchase orders for those purchases. Category 2 is from amounts from $500 up to $2,499.99, and they must have prior approval. Requests will be reviewed and approved or denied by the police commission for the police department, library trustees for the library, or the town administrator for all the other departments. Category 3 is from $2,500 up to $9,999.99. And these purchases must be approved in advance by either the police commission for the police department, library trustees for the library, or the board of selectmen for all the other departments. Category 4 is amounts over $10,000. And these purchases are considered a capital item and need to be included in the budget as a line item or as a capital expense approved by the budget committee and town meeting, unless the board of selectmen determine that it's under extenuating circumstances, in which case they can waive those requirements. Sections 11 through 13 outline miscellaneous aspects of the policy as far as like rebidding on projects, optional purchasing methods, emergency waiver of bidding requirements, state bid prices, blanket purchases and stuff, regional purchasing items like that. Contracts and conditions of purchases are outlined, including details on bids deemed most advantageous to the town, rejecting bids, and again, rebidding. A conflict of interest section prohibits town employees or officials from accepting gifts from any vendor, except for token advertising items of insignificant value. And we have an addendum to the policy that is a chart that outlines based on the purchasing level, what whose approval needs to go along with that, and the procedure for paperwork and whatnot that would need to go with depending on what the purchase is. Does anybody have questions on the policy part? Okay.
Anybody?
The only thing that I would question or consider adding under section 8, when we're looking at the 10,000 and over, we've got the selectmen can determine if exceptions should be made. Do we want to specifically include like unanticipated revenue or grant funding as potential for not requiring approval for town meeting, through town meeting?
We can definitely do that if that's what the board wants to do. Yep.
Grant funding makes a lot of sense to me to add in that if we write for grant funds, win the grant funds,
We ought to be able to use the grant funds. Yeah.
we have to use the grant funds. Right?
Yes. Makes sense to me.
Does that, Matt, are you saying that that needs to be written in, or can that be considered as part of the special exception?
I guess as long as we're all in agreement that that would be part of the special exception, then that's fine.
Cheryl, would you recommend that in a clarifying note?
I could write it right in as part of the policy. That way it's crystal clear with everybody, you know, from year to year or whatever.
Well, at least for our year anyway.
Yeah.
Pam?
Yeah, I was going to say, please write it in so we have clarity in the future.
There you go. Okay.
Okay, I will do that.
Oh, Walter?
I just want to mention though that that doesn't, you know, supersede the process that's required for accepting, you know, grants, which requires a public hearing and so forth, depending on the on the amount. So, you know, it's not going to waive those requirements. So whether it's included or not, it's going to be addressed through a different process under a different statute.
Mhm. True.
Okay. Any other comments?
Okay, I'll go on to the purchasing policy administrative rules. And they just give a little bit more detail to each section as for better clarification. And these are also the rules that the board has given Walter permission to change if we need to, just for housekeeping issues or whatever. Section 7 lists purchases that are exempt from the approval requirements, such as utility costs, advertising, postage, taxes, debt service payments, contractual agreements, and human service payments. So anytime we get an electric bill, we don't have to go through, you know, a formal process to pay that type of thing. Section 8 outlines a competitive bidding process in detail, step by step. Section 9 defines information that should be included in the purchase order request. And that's about it for the administrative rules.
Questions on the administrative part? Cheryl, just for clarity, how closely does this resemble the policy that you followed in Amherst?
Basically, the policy is very similar. The dollar amounts were very different, but it was a very different situation. So, but the basic policy and procedures part of it is pretty standard.
Okay. Anybody else have questions on that? Okay, why don't we move on then to the other?
Accounts payable policy. And this policy's purpose is to establish guidelines for the processing of payments in compliance with the previously presented purchasing policy, because once you buy something, you have to pay for it. The objective is to ensure prompt and accurate payment to vendors, and I understand that has been an issue in the past, and to promote a satisfactory credit standing and adhere to appropriate accounting practices. Again, there's a list of definitions. Section 5 outlines policy items such as all requests for payments have to be supported by a source document, either an invoice or receipt or something that shows what was purchased and how much and to whom. And part of this particular section right here that I failed to put in, which I will add for next meeting, is and all requests for payments have to have department head approval on them before any payment will be made. So I will add that in. Any reimbursements to town and Northwood employees will be approved by the town administrator prior to payment. And payment will not be made from packing slips, quotes, estimates, or statements without the invoices attached, unless special accommodations are made in advance with the finance director on a case-by-case basis. We do have a vendor that does not do invoices and they just do off a work order, which in that case, we would proceed as we have been. But under most cases, it would have to be an invoice, a receipt, or some kind of actual request for payment. And the reason that I put this in is because this cuts down on the possibility of duplicate payments. Because if you pay somebody once off a packing slip, then when the invoice comes, you pay them again. Payments for past due amounts will not be paid without a copy of the unpaid invoice attached. And this is a change from the past practice. And that's again to prevent the duplicate payments being made. All payments are made by paper check or through online banking, ACH, and are only made payable to a specific payee, not cash or bearer. All payments will be made by the finance department through the accounts payable system. No handwritten checks will be dispersed to vendors except in emergency situations, which must be approved by the Board of Selectmen in advance. And this next section is a little bit of a change from past practice as well. All checks cut to a vendor from any funds being held by the town treasurer, with the exception of accounts held on behalf of another entity, such as planning board, site fees, engineering fees, that type of accounts, will be processed through the general operating account through the accounts payable system. Reimbursements needed from any other fund will then be transferred back into the general fund by the treasurer. Right, in the past, the treasurer has been issuing checks if something was being paid out of the recreation fund or the special detail fund, or one of those. She's been paying the vendors directly, which is not a problem, except that then you do not have a paper trail of the payment to that particular vendor in the software in the accounting system. So that's the reason that I prefer to have all checks issued through the operating fund and then reimburse from whatever fund is actually covering the payment for that item. Because then everything is in the system, it's traceable. The auditors like to see the whole paper trail.
Yep. Pam,
So,
hold on a second. I think Pam's been raising her hand and I missed
sorry,
it.
Pam.
That's okay. You were on 5.7, I believe, and your wording differed. And I'm just wondering if by the next reading we'll have that different wording, or am I looking at the wrong section on this?
5.7 about, yeah, vendor checks from will be going through the general fund. Yes.
Okay,
I mean, that's,
are you going to reword that for us?
I can if you would like me to. I was just kind of trying to explain why I did that, but I can certainly expand on the wording of that if that would help.
I think so. I think clarity would help overall.
Okay.
I think the confusion
Thank you.
is, you didn't note that they were escrow accounts. You said general fund accounts. So it's the escrow accounts, which is stated in the policy.
Correct. Okay. I will make it totally clear for the next meeting.
Okay, good.
And that is, that's all I have.
Questions? I've got a couple, and Cheryl, oh, I'm sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Have we talked to like trustees of the trust fund about their thoughts on 5.7 or gotten any feedback from those folks in terms of that process? Or is this more of a, we're doing this for best practice and we're learning?
I was mainly talking about non-trustee funds, but in the past, that is the way they were handled here in Northwood anyway, is that we were cutting a check and then asking the trustees for reimbursement. So it's the way that part has been done all along, evidently,
Okay.
unless someone can correct me.
No, that's, I know it came up like with the mowing and stuff, and I know we paid that directly and then went back.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Other questions? Cheryl, or maybe it's for both you and Walter. Have the department heads and the employees been apprised of this? And is it clear to them that we're going to follow one policy, especially as it relates to signing off on invoices or documenting that the goods and stuff have been received?
I have not sent these out to department heads yet, only because I finished them on Friday just in time to get them into the meeting. But I will certainly send them out tomorrow for comments. And I have been, ever since I started here, I've been having department heads sign off on invoices anyway. So they're kind of already in that, groove anyway. But this would make it official. But yeah, I will send that out to department heads for their opinions.
Yeah, because that has been an issue in the past where we have bills that weren't paid and then we find out that we didn't have documentation that it was okay to pay. So let's just reinforce that, please.
Okay.
Anything else? Oh, Walter, I'm sorry, you raised your hand.
I was just going to pretty much echo what Cheryl has said, that, in this particular case, because we're complying with audit standards and general accepted accounting principles, this becomes a dictatorship versus a democracy. So once the policy is adopted, it'll be made completely clear with the department heads that this is the process by which we'll be paying bills. And as Cheryl mentioned, this is pretty much the standard practice. I think I've mentioned it before. I review every invoice that's paid every 2 weeks and make sure that it has a authorization on it, or it goes back to Cheryl to get the department head's approval. So I've had that experience in the past with auditors, and that's one way to eliminate a question.
Right. I guess the related question, Cheryl and Walter, is first off, thank you for pulling all these policies together. Where do we stand, relatively speaking, in terms of the overall list of these types of policies that you wanted to review and update? Are we halfway through? Are we most of the way through? Are we just still starting? And I'm asking in particular because the audit is, I want to know how we are going to compare on the audit, not for last year, obviously, but the one that would be for this year. Will we be in good shape?
Well, we definitely will be in much better shape. I can tell you that much. I don't have the list of all the policies in front of me right now, so off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. We're well on our way as far as the financial policies. I know that there's a lot of policies that Walter's looking at that are not really in my purview, but yeah, we're definitely moving in the right direction, and there probably will be a few more coming along from finance, but these that we've already done, including these today that you've looked at, are kind of the biggies.
Yeah. How about, if you don't mind, for the next reading, could you just also come prepared to just give us a little bit better sense of that, please?
Sure.
Okay. Other questions or comments? If not, then I'll just remind the public that we do these in two parts. We have a first reading, and then we have a second reading at the next meeting, or at least the following meeting. And then at that point, we vote to implement. Okay. Well, Cheryl, great job. Yeah, I mean, it's just really satisfying to see this stuff clicking along and coming into place. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Walter, you ready to do the TA report?
No, I'm ready to do the consent agenda.
How did I miss that?
Thought that got bumped.
Okay.
No bad matter over here.
I'm sorry. I guess I need to start putting check marks on these babies. Okay, let's do the consent agenda first. I'm just going to remind the public that we review the stuff that's on the consent agenda prior to the meeting. Just as an example, there was over 200 pages of stuff in our meeting pack this week. Now, not absolutely all of those pages relate to the consent agenda, but the vast majority do. It would be very cumbersome and time consuming, and I think it would end up with us not making good decisions if we didn't review that material in advance. So that's what we do, and we're able then to come to the meeting prepared. So when Walter lists these things off, I just want to assure you that we all have copies of this. We all have revised copies of it. We all have a chance to review it. So I just want to assure you that we're making sure the town business gets done properly. Walter?
So the consent agenda for May 25, 2021 includes a accounts payable manifest dated May 26, 2021, which is batch number 17608 for $115,527.65. Some of the more expensive items included in this manifest include our monthly payment to Health Trust for $24,505. That's for employee health insurance. A payment to Co-File Preservation for $14,442, which is payment for the restoration of 4 books that belong to the historical records of the town clerk. So those have all been put into nice, fresh, new preservation format. And that will also include some electronic copies and microfiche copies as well. We also have included $26,337.82 for the New Hampshire Retirement System, which is our contribution on behalf of our employees. There's a $5,364 payment to the Stratford Regional Planning Commission for our dues. And finally, there's a payment of $6,845.90 to Waste Management for disposal of recyclables and our trash.
Well, Walter, hold on just a second. Pam has a question.
Walter, can I have the batch number again? I can't seem to find that on my consent agenda.
I was just going to say the same thing. I think when Paul sent out the revised consent agenda, he sent the old one.
All right, because I'm not the only one looking through my computer and flipping through. Because anything that Walter just read, I have no clue what he's just said. So
Yeah, he was reading.
Walter, we
we
sort
don't have
of
the
have
updated
it,
one.
I think. We still do, because some of the names here are current that are going on right now. But this top, we've got a payroll manifest and the first issue tax warrant. We do not have your batch number for
Right.
your 115,000.
So the batch number is 17608.
And that was 115,527.65.
That is correct.
Okay. And am I correct, though, that the rest of our consent agenda is on here?
That's correct.
Now, hold on a second.
Okay.
That's the question.
Just that, so in an earlier email today, Paul said that that AP manifest, the 115, was going to get bumped. I'm assuming due to the lack of turnaround time on it. So
Due to what, please?
just lack of turnaround. I think that's the one that came out today. So I don't know if it was just a matter of not being sure if everyone had had a chance to properly review it before putting it on the consent agenda.
Okay, so, on that one, then maybe we should take that one off the consent agenda.
Can't pay the bills without you not consenting.
Well, we'll sign them tomorrow after we've reviewed them, Walter, or do you need them signed tonight yet?
We can pull it up and see if it's got 3 signatures on it. I mean, if it's got 3 signatures, then
Yeah,
What's your concern? That you haven't
seen it yet.
seen the consent agenda, or you haven't seen the
I haven't seen that particular item. I haven't seen the AP manifest.
Yeah. Signature requested. Cheryl sent that out at 3:27, and I'm at home and I was unable to open and sign it yet, so I have not been able to open and sign that. And that is batch 17608. So yeah, I have not seen it.
Yeah, Cheryl?
yeah, it looks
I
like
just want, oh, sorry. I just wanted to say that that did go out later than is normal, because I was waiting for abatement information to come from Carol and the tax collector's office, and I was holding the running of the checks till I received all the abatement information, trying to get them all included. So I apologize, but they did go out late this afternoon, 3:30 or whatever it was that Pam said. But that's why it was later than normal.
Okay, so how do we want to handle this?
So if you can have those signed tonight, that will allow us to mail out the checks tomorrow.
Okay. How about we do this? Because it sounds like folks did not get a chance. Are you comfortable taking it off the consent agenda, but then we will review immediately after the meeting and sign?
Yeah, or you can approve it subject to receipt of the signatures of a majority of the board members.
Pam, did you want to say something?
Yeah, could we circle around for a moment, like we're not landing at the airport? I finally have gotten into the AP register, so if you give me a few minutes and the rest of us a few minutes, like maybe if Walter did his report and we come back to the consent agenda, we will have had a chance to sign.
How about we do this? That's a good approach. Would you be willing to take a couple other items and then we'll take a short recess to do that and come back to the consent agenda, Walter? Would you be comfortable with that?
Yep, very much so.
Okay, so how about, if it's 6:39, how about we try to get through your report, then we'll take a short recess, review the accounts payable, and then come back to the consent agenda. Is that okay with everybody?
I will point out that it's just Hal and I that need to do this.
Oh, So we have 3 signatures on it already.
I believe so.
If we have 3 signatures, then I'm comfortable leaving it on. I trust the other folks to have done a good review.
And I'm shipping 4 signatures.
Okay, well then, I guess the discussion was a moot point. Walter, continue with the consent agenda, please.
I
Thank
pulled
you.
over on the side of 101 to review it, so I wouldn't get too late, so.
I was working outside today with the chipper, so I didn't have a chance of seeing it, so sorry.
Sorry about that. As Cheryl mentioned, we're really trying, because we're paying interest on the abatement money that we receive for payment that people paid the taxes. So we wanted to get that out the door as soon as possible to stop the interest clock.
Yeah, that's fine. We got it covered, so let's do it.
Okay, so the second item on our consent agenda is the payroll manifest dated May 19, 2021. That's batch number 17594 for $74,159.70. The third item on our agenda is the 2021 first issue tax warrant, which is in the amount of $6,126,854, which the board has signed. We also have a number of abatement recommendations, and I'll apologize in advance for the names that I murder. But David Alucanus, Wendy Appel, Kendall Bain, Kim Bonifant, and Vince Eugene, Barbara Dobbins, Chandler, New Hampshire Realty Trust, David Elliott Douglas and Deborah Fleming, Joseph and Judith King, Nick and Susan Kufogazos, Norman Provencia, Northwood Mountain View, lots 230-82, 230-82-1-1, 230-82-2-1, 230-82-3-1, and 230-82-4-1, and Laurie Wilkinson Bell. Other items in the consent agenda include an application for a current use assessment from Kendall Bain, an intent to cut from Jeffrey Ames, a junk dealer's license from Harding Metals, a yield tax from Michael Boldrick, a yield tax from Ronald Kalmarzewski, and a yield tax from Susan Romano.
Okay, so let's just make sure it's clear to everybody. On the list of abatements, these are not necessarily agreements with what the people came in and requested. What we are approving is what the assessor, our professional assessor, recommends. And that could be, in some cases, approval of the abatement, or it could be a denial, or it could be some other number. But it's based on what Jeff Earls has recommended as our appraiser. Is everybody clear on that? I guess the other clarification is on the first issue of the tax warrant. This basically is the follow-on to the taxes that were in the tax rate that was set towards the end of last year. So there won't be any changes in the tax rate itself. Those bills are going to go out on or about June 1st, and the bills will be due on July 8th. Anybody have any questions, or anybody have any items that they feel we should take off the consent agenda and vote separately? Walter, do you want to say something?
I just want to clarify, it's likely that the bills may go out June 2nd or 3rd. We talked to the vendor today, and because of the holiday, it may lose a day or two from our schedule, but I just wanted to clarify that. But the due date will be the same.
July 8th.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so anybody want to take anything off the consent agenda and handle it separately? If not, then I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as read. That includes the AP that Walter listed off also.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
And we have a second from Tim. Is there a discussion? Hearing none. Beth, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have little grandkids here. I got to keep it on mute or you'll hear them all.
The public needs to hear you, so that's okay. Tim?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And Hal is yes. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on too far, I got a note from Paul that the motion for the minutes approval might have had the wrong date. Can we revisit that and amend it for May 11th?
You know what? It does say on the agenda, April 22nd. So what? Yeah, it is May 11th. Do we, what do we need? A new motion? Or just a clarification?
It's a Walter question.
Just a clarification.
Okay, so is everybody clear that we voted on the minutes that were in the pack, which is for May 8th? Anybody have any questions or concerns about that?
11th.
May 11th.
What did I say, May 8th?
You really don't want it to be May 11th.
Eventually we'll get this date right. Okay, so is everybody clear that we voted on the minutes from May 8th?
May
Including
11th.
11th.
May 11th.
Yes.
It's like one of those songs that sticks in your head, I guess. I don't know.
He's gonna run the town, in case of emergency. We're all incapacitated, huh? Stay away from the
On
chipper.
May 11th. It's those minutes. Okay, I'm sorry for that. Whatever you want to call it. Brain fart. Okay. Okay. Well, the clarification of the clarification took longer than anything else. Okay. Are we ready to move on to the TA reports?
Mr. Chairman, can I
Okay.
suggest,
Walter, finally.
we drop down to old business as we have two guests here that are prepared to participate in the discussion regarding the election day responsibilities, Mr. Young and Mr. Gunn.
Oh, right. Yeah, good point. Okay, why don't we do that? So election day responsibilities, we've got Bob Young and Keith McGuigan here. Why don't we have them join us? And then Walter, do you want to lead this discussion or how do you want to handle it?
Well, it's kind of Keith's ball game in terms of the election and what you need from the select board and so forth. And if, the purpose with the changes that have taken place and guidelines and best practices and so forth, what his wishes are in terms of going forward with standard protocol from the November election or something different. So.
Okay, so Keith, what do you think?
There you go. Okay, so I did just send out an email. We discussed this a little bit, but my proposal for what we should do is basically we already have the plans in place. We already have the protocols that we were using for the previous election. In talking to our emergency management director and other people, it seems like now's maybe not quite the time to be changing those things yet. I know the CDC did change their guidance. However, that guidance is only applicable to vaccinated people, who is not everybody, and we actually have no way of knowing who is and isn't vaccinated. Part of the motivation here is that we do want to be able to make it so that everybody feels comfortable coming to vote, because if they don't feel comfortable, they won't, and we prefer more turnout over less. So my current thought is that we basically go with the same layout and protocols that we did for the November election. It seemed to work well, with only, maybe one less check-in table, because we anticipate less people coming to this than in November. And therefore we'll need a few less volunteers. Mm-hmm. So that was where I was heading mentally, at least.
Yeah, Matt, do you want to speak to this?
Just a question for Bob. That's actually in line with the state's revised indoor recommendations, isn't it?
Absolutely. The other thing that point is that the CDC guidance and even the state guidance that had to do with masks did not apply to schools. schools actually still have to maintain the same protocols that they've been doing right up through the entire school, the rest of the school year. So since we're meeting in a school building, it would be appropriate for us to follow the mask guidelines and so forth.
Okay, anybody else want to speak up on this? Tim?
So we're still gonna have like the front main entrance for people who can't put masks on? Like we did the last time, Keith, we're all set, like little
That
out
was-
there. Okay. No,
That's the plan.
Same.
Yep.
I think it's good that we're keeping it at the school. I think that gives us some consistency. And if the school is saying that we should follow that, and that's what Bob's recommendation is, that's the way I'd like to go. Tim, you want to say something?
Did we have anybody like take a ballot out to somebody in a car because they couldn't physically get out of the car any last time? I know somebody thought maybe, I don't know, Miss White, like around the corner from me, she came in or had a wheelchair or something, but I thought somebody like.
There are provisions for doing that. I think we did do it at the last election.
Okay, I'm just
there is protocol for that. The clerk
Okay.
can go out and do those things. Yep. I think you have to sign an affidavit for disability in order for that to work, but it is, the state law does allow to do that.
Other questions? Okay, so if I were to summarize then, we're basically going to do a repeat of November. Is that correct, Keith?
Essentially, yeah.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good then. Does anybody else want to weigh in? Last chance. Okay, if not, then the other part of this was responsibilities. Did you want to talk to us about any of that at this point, Keith, or are you all set on responsibilities?
So I know you guys all know this, and I just threw it out there because I'll throw it out before every election for all the selectmen, just to remind you all. We do need to have selectmen or a I would say pro temp available at all times in the election area. So that means because the state will come, at least they did in November, right? The attorney general's office will come and say, where's your selectman? Where's this? Where's that? And they go through a checklist. So if you're not going to be able to be there from 7 to 7, or maybe a little later than 7, please arrange to have somebody else step in for you and let me know who that is so we can get that all set up. And we will just assign duties. I'm not going to go through and assign, I'm going to try to make sure I get all the ballot clerk ballot clerk station staff. And after that, it's going to be, mostly running around helping voters, doing things like that. I did mention to you guys in an email that I am going to need a few hours, I think, as for you in a ballot clerk situation, just because we don't have a whole lot of volunteers. If we get some more people, we might be able to, we'll let you guys free on that. So hopefully, I think we will have a ballot clerk training at some point. So I'll send out information when that becomes available. When we start doing that, we should probably do that pretty soon.
Yeah,
so great to attend that if you can.
Yeah, I know the last time you did that, you also sent out the training material, or there was something we could review prior to that.
And I'll try to do that again. Yep, good point. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, does anybody have any questions in terms of responsibilities for showing up on voting day?
I think there's just one other caveat that Keith didn't mention is because Pam and Beth are running for office, there is the electioneering concern, so that they wouldn't be able to be around the ballot box or where the ballots are.
We can only look pretty. Sorry.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
And that will not be a problem for either of you.
Technically, I'm on the ballot too, by the way, but I think I get exemption from that rule.
You have an exemption, yes.
You're still pretty.
I get exemption from that rule too.
So you might as well state it now, Keith. Have you thought about whether you're going to require them to stay outside of the building, or are they going to be able to be inside but just not near the ballot box?
I will review the law about that, but I believe the law says something that they just can't handle cast ballots.
Right.
And so I would like to, yes, I will do my best to maybe keep them away from all ballots, just to make it as clean as possible.
Right.
But
The last moderator made us stand outside. I remember I was standing in snow. He was like, stay outside, freeze.
Yes, yes. Some people are more strict than others.
If it comes down to, it may just be a call on the day of. If it looks like your electioneering is going on inside the building, I may do the same. But if you guys are well behaved, I don't think it's going to make a difference.
Wait a minute, did you say well behaved, Keith?
Right. I know. It's difficult to imagine that, but yeah.
Yeah,
We'll be outside, Pam.
we'll talk after the meeting.
Okay. Anything else for these gentlemen?
Thank you again for what you guys do.
Thank
Yeah,
you so
thank you
much.
very
It's really
much.
appreciated.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Oh, while you guys are here, I'll just mention, Keith made up a really nice plaque for the Citizen of the Year and presented it to Bob. Do I have that picture handy? No, I don't.
Oh,
So,
you know what?
Actually, it was a nice picture. All you guys looked great.
I only saw the one with you. Okay, anything else that we want to go over with these guys?
No, thank you and congratulations, Mr. Young, for all you do. It's much
Yeah.
appreciated.
Very good.
Thank you, Beth. Appreciate it.
Welcome on.
Okay, well, thanks again, gentlemen. Thanks for waiting, and we'll see you at the election, if not sooner.
All right. Later.
Okay, I'm checking that one off so I don't do it twice. Okay. Walter, are you ready? Now are we ready for your TA reports?
I am ready, yes.
Okay.
So, giving you an update on staffing, we continue to receive and review applications for the building and code enforcement health officer position. I do have one candidate that I'd like the board to discuss in non-public session at the end of the meeting. The vacant transfer station supervisor position has been posted, and we are also posting for the summer beach attendants sometime this week. So that's what we're doing in terms of our staffing, filling our staffing vacancies at this point.
That's what we're calling them, beach attendants. Is that what, Matt? Is that what we went by last year? I just want to make sure we get that. Okay.
Yep.
Moving on to the American Rescue Plan update. As the world turns, so does the guidelines of the American Rescue Plan. So I was informed the other day at a webinar that the Treasury will be recalculating the distribution to the cities and towns, and we're supposed to get an update on that this week. Evidently, they left several off the list when they did the calculation the first time. So I asked the question if we would, in fact, more than likely be receiving less, and nobody would give me a firm answer, but the likelihood is probably high that we would, seeing more people want a piece of the pie. So essentially, as the guidelines get clearer, as I noted in my report, there's 4 areas that are addressed in the guidelines that this money can be utilized for. The first one is to continue your response to or mitigate the effects of the COVID pandemic. And that includes building improvements, air handling systems, purchasing PPE for the continued service of the public for the pandemic. It also includes premium pay for essential workers. As you remember, there was a payment that was extended to the police and fire back in the spring, but didn't include anything for other workers that were considered frontline workers that worked for other departments that had to continue to serve the public. So if you elected to do premium pay for them, that could be included as a use for these funds. You can also cover some government service to the extent of the total loss of revenue during the pandemic. So for instance, if we determined through calculation that we received less revenue, and we certainly did in some areas. I mean, recreation fees and things, programs that didn't receive as much money as they would typically do, then we can calculate what that loss is compared to our previous full year pre-COVID year, which would probably go back to 2019. And that number could be, the funds could be used to fund operating items or even capital items, depending on the item, the amount from these funds as well. I'm not so sure that's going to be a big number for us, but that's certainly something we can look at as a potential way to utilize some of the money. Also, it can be utilized for improvements to water and sewer systems, the clean water programs, and broadband infrastructure. Those are all things that would qualify for utilization of this fund. So that's just the tip of the iceberg as far as the general categories now that have been kind of broken down. We've got another webinar tomorrow that will probably lend more information to the program, but the money, as I mentioned before, will flow through the state of New Hampshire. And as I mentioned, the state cannot put any further restrictions on it other than what's been put on by the Treasury. This money comes to the state. The state has 30 days to distribute it to the cities and towns. And then from there, we have actually up to 2024 to actually utilize the money. It'll come to us in two segments. One will be on or about July 1st of 2021. The second will be on or about July 1st of 2022. So we receive the money, we obviously put it in the bank, and then we, collectively talk about what some of the options are and what some of the categories are, what we think might be in the best interest of the public to do improvements, et cetera, whatever the board decides how best to utilize the money, and then we spend it accordingly, and then report back to the government how we spent it. So, as I say, more information coming every day, but that's a little more of the Reader's Digest version of the Hopper funds, as it's being called.
So, Walter, just to recap, I think at one point you said order of magnitude $400,000. And
it's about 460,000, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Well, I moved it down a little bit since you said we have to share it with more people. Yeah. But anyway, also you said it could be retroactive all the way back to 2019.
No, what I was saying is that basically let me see here, the start date is retroactive, but it goes back to let's see, hang on just a second, see if I can find that date. So actually, it's as of March 3rd of 2021, as far as qualified moving forward funds. What I was referring to, going back to 2019, is that would be our last quote unquote normal year of revenue.
Oh, I got it.
So that would be the measuring stick compared to say this period and where we are, what the difference is in terms of revenue because of the impact of COVID. Would be a number that we would be allowed to use for operating expenditures or capital items that could come out of this fund.
Good. Matt, did you want to bring something up?
Yeah, just a thought I had when I was thinking about this earlier. I know that we talked about the increase in household trash and recyclables at the transfer station during the lockdown, especially. Do you think if we were able to find some, do a year-by-year comparison, that we could write off or look for reimbursement on some of the increased tipping and hauling fees through the transfer station, if we could make the argument that that is due to COVID?
It's a great idea.
The numbers that and so once I had the idea, I did a little bit of research, and somewhere between 5 and 20% increased household trash through the average transfer station during the pandemic. So I think we could make the argument for it. Whether they greenlight it or not is a different story. But
yeah,
we also had to buy 2 bigger containers to handle the waste. We built a bigger dumpster and a bigger cardboard container too. So
yep,
that's $20,000.
I just wanted to put it in your head and see what you thought.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think that's great, Matt, on the transfer station costs. I think I'd also advocate for the hundreds of Northwood residents that would like broadband improvements in the infrastructure. So definitely, I'd be in there pitching for that. Something to do with the broadband, because you know that cable TV fund isn't going to cover that.
Yeah, it's really not even for that per se, so we'd have to be very careful about that. But you're right, you know, I think the internet is specifically listed here, so that could be something we could really dig into.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, definitely. I'm sure we can come up with a list of pages of different things that would consume 10 times this amount, but you know, these are good points to note. And then once we know what the dollar amounts are, once the guidance is clearer, then we
Yeah.
can have a discussion about prioritizing, you know, what would be in the, you know, best interest and the best utilization of the funding, and, you know, make sure it meets the guidelines and go from there.
Good, good. That's encouraging in terms of the amount of money. That's really good.
More to come.
Yeah.
Moving on to next item is mentioned before, the first issue tax bills scheduled to go out on or about June 1st, maybe June 3rd, due for July 8th. Next item, the bid results for the building repairs and painting was not a very successful outcome. We actually didn't receive any bids for the painting projects after distributing the RFP to numerous vendors, as well as posting and advertising. And we did get one proposal for the repairs to the town office building and the community center, which was included in your package. The one bid came from Home Repair Plus by Nate Smith of Northwood. And the total cost of the planned repairs to both locations is approximately $25,780. Obviously, there's always a caveat when you're working on older buildings that, you know, there could be additional repair work that's not identified visually until you start digging into it. But, you know, that's really the only proposal that we had after going through a, you know, a formal bid process. So, you know, I've talked to Chris, I've had him review the proposals. Also provided a copy to Betsy as the chair of the Highway and Facilities Committee, and Steve Bailey, obviously former contractor. So for input and positive input in terms of Steve and Chris, in terms of the pricing and so forth, seems to be in line with, you know, market conditions and so forth. So the only thing that's really outstanding is I did request some references in terms of, you know, comparable work that we could, customers that we could check with, and I haven't received those as of yet. So, so if, you know, I don't know what the board's pleasure is, if we want to rebid the project, if we want to try to go out and solicit, now that we've gone through the bid process, try to solicit additional quotes or estimates, or move forward with this particular proposal in hopes of getting the work done before winter.
What's the board's pleasure? Well, if nobody else wants to speak up, I'm going to just say my preference is to not let this go. The longer you wait on repairs, the more expensive it can get. And so if you can verify that this gentleman can do good work, I'd be inclined to move it forward. I guess the related question is, it was broken apart into several parts. Would you, Walter, was it you're thinking that we do all of them, or were you going to only recommend some of the components?
Well, as you, I believe currently there's approximately $50,000 in the trust fund, and perhaps Beth can speak to what's been discussed at the committee level. But I believe there was a discussion that that this scope of services, including the roofing, would be about $35,000. So that's a pretty good guesstimate, you know, especially with the way the conditions are now. And this does address the list that was provided to me, you know, by the committee. In addition to some additional work that was recommended by the contractor and concurred with Steve Bailey regarding the siding on the community center on the west side has deteriorated to the point where it probably won't hold paint anymore anyway. So there's a recommendation and a cost to replace the clapboard siding from the sill up to the bottom of the second floor windows, which seems to be the most needy area. So the scope is actually a little bit bigger than what was originally planned. You know, and the other things included are the entry, the handicap accessible,
Right, right.
the repairs at the 2 decks and repairs at the town offices, which turns out to be a little more extensive because during the process, identified a couple of windows that had started to rot significantly on that same side of the building and need to be replaced as well. So,
Tim and then Beth.
Let's say we vote on it and he gets the job. Is he qualified to
That's the thing.
take all the lead paint off this building and all the trim, and he's gonna throw it in our dump? His thing said so. He says he's gonna, you know, all the demolition he's bringing to the town facility.
yeah,
We're gonna take
you know, our agreement says everything has to be done with, you know, in conformance with federal, state, and local regulations. So
does he have lead certified?
I don't know that for sure, Tim.
That might be part of what we have to check to see if he's qualified.
Right.
How about Beth? You wanted to?
Yeah.
Beth?
So what was Chris's thought on this? I mean, the work needs to get done. We've neglected some of these buildings for so long, and the price of lumber is going to keep on going up. I had thought maybe that were they going to do the prisoner program again? I had heard maybe a little scuttlebutt about that. Will that be happening? I mean, we need to get it done. We have the money. We need to take care of it. But I didn't know if there was a way to save a little money too.
I think Chris is available to, he was looking into that yesterday or today to confirm. So Chris, are you available to comment on that?
Thanks, Chris.
So yeah, I did look into talking to Steve Bailey and stuff and going over the prison program. We haven't got a definite whether they're going to let us or which town, you know, we were supposed to be first and stuff, as Mike said, but it's kind of a shot in the dark right now and up in the air. But as far as the repair goes, I mean, unfortunately, it's got to get done. It's been too long. And some of the, even the siding at the community center and stuff is allowing water to come in through the side of the building now, you know, on a heavy driving rain. So we put it off too much longer, we're going to have nothing left.
Okay, well, I think that pretty much answers the question for me. Beth, did you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, I did. So I would say we should go with the contractor as long as the references are okay and you know, they have the qualifications and, you know, keep our name on the prisoner program list because I can guarantee there'll be another project that we'll need to get done soon.
Yeah.
True that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, hon.
No problem.
You want to say something?
I just wanted to make sure that he is, you know, verified that he can dispose of the lead stuff. And what do we do with it once we get to our transfer station? We have to pay extra to get rid of that? I mean, how does all that work? I just want to make sure those costs is all up front of what we're going to pay on the lead stuff.
So we have to put all the painted wood in the bin. So do they test the painted wood? I mean,
no, it's all landfilled, unfortunately.
Because anyone could just bring some paint and say it's not lead. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to, I'm saying anyone, you know.
So certain amounts can be disposed of in the demo, but once it gets to the point where it's the whole, you know, lead paint, especially the whole side of the building, then there's nothing that can be done, and it have to be bagged and removed off site by another source.
Okay, so that's an additional cost that we would bear then?
Oh yeah, and that's when you start getting into lead abatement and stuff like that. It's
big bucks. So that's a big thing.
Okay. But then that just needs to be part of our consideration when we approve this work, that we maybe need to approve some additional disposal costs. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. And I know Rick and stuff. I mean, basically we could have a small can dropped off, like a 15-yard can from Rick from East Coast Container, and we could put it all in that, and then Rick can take it to ARC to be disposed of properly, or the other one up in Berwick. I can't remember the name, but so it can be disposed of properly.
But it's not
we would have to,
or not at our transfer station. Okay. Walter,
Yeah.
did you want to add something to that?
I just want to say, I think, Chris, you mentioned that the state has a license for lead abatement. Is that, I mean, the county?
Yeah, I guess talking to Mr. Bailey, I guess he was saying that the prisoners and stuff, they actually hold the license for abatement and stuff for scraping and painting. So
maybe if we can't, you know, coordinate working with them and do the removal at a time, we might be able to work it out that way.
Right.
Versus, you know, I mean, obviously we're going to do it as it should be done. So we'll figure it out in terms of what's the best way, and talk to the contract and see what his thoughts were on it.
Okay, so how do you want to handle the disposal cost? We're just going to have that come back as an expense when we do this, because I mean, I don't know how we preemptively figure out what it's going to be. We don't even know how much you're going to pull off.
Probably, honestly, the best bet would be to have Rick drop a 15-yard can, and then all the demo debris go right into that.
Okay.
And then have it disposed of properly. That's going to be our cheapest bet.
Yeah. Okay, so order of magnitude, proper disposal of that 15 cubic yard, how much?
Depending on what I don't know off the top of my head of lead and stuff, but I mean, demo debris, you're talking a couple $100 a ton anyways, plus hauling. So,
okay,
you know, that would be something I'd have to look into tomorrow.
okay, but you know, say it's 10 tons, so that could be $2,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so order of magnitude, we're not talking like breaking the bank, but it's not.
No, you're not talking tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Beth?
But I think a dumpster kind of thing, like with a container, would be more cost effective in the long run versus
Right.
bagging it up, because it takes more time to bag. And so, I mean,
More labor, yeah, the whole bit, yeah. Okay, but it sounds like we can figure this out. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to be, you know, like I say, $25,000 surprise at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't sound that way. Okay, so.
We'll be back if it's that amount.
Okay. Sounds like okay, so I'm sensing general consensus that we move forward. Does somebody want to make a motion to approve the work subject to qualifications and references?
so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, okay, now discussion.
We're just going to leave that to Walter and Chris's.
Well, we have the quotes for all the work, and you know, this is to do all of it. We're not cutting back on any other stuff that was bid. The only thing that people need to know is that in addition to what we're approving for the bids, there's going to be an additional disposal fee, order of magnitude, let's say 10% of the cost.
I'm talking more in terms of checking the qualifications, in terms of the lead certification, and looking at the other work. We're just going to put that on Walter's shoulders and approve it with that contingency.
Walter, do you have any concerns or issues with that?
No, not at all.
Perfect.
Those qualifications and, as Tim says, you know, the capabilities.
I'd like to see that letter from Mr. Bailey and the prisoners that they hold that, you know.
Yeah.
The prisoners hold that. There's got to be some certification certificate that says these prisoners that come out from the county farm or the Concord, wherever they come from, that, you know.
Yeah, let's let him get it. Then we'll cover it. I think we need to be covered. That's for sure. Okay, so the vote is to accept the bid from the gentleman in Northwood to do the work, subject to certification and reference check. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Tim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Beth,
Yes.
and Hal is yes. Okay, continue on, please, Walter.
Well, moving on to the Harvey Lake Dam and boat ramp. I did start the research on the ownership of the dam, which was in question according to DES. The last notice that they came from us back in January of 2020. And so far, I haven't been able to tie down exactly if the town owns that dam or not, but that research will continue on that to try to find out if we can nail that down. And then the boat ramp, as we talked about, is in very, very poor shape. And we're going to be posting that, basically use at your own risk, rather than try to do anything repair-wise, because it's obviously a very sensitive area, requires certain permits. And, that's going to be something that we're going to have additional discussions on as far as what that might entail in terms of restoring it or improving it, eliminating it, just a number of different options. But it's a very difficult site to work with, and it's certainly not going to be easy, and it's definitely not going to be inexpensive to do it right. So
Right.
I think once we determine the issue with the dam, because that needs to be addressed as well in terms of the work that needs to be done there. And then what we end up doing in terms of the boat launch and put some numbers to it, then we'll have to decide where we go in terms of trying to find funding for it.
Well, I'm just going to say right up front, I heard when you talked about the federal funds, you said water. And this regards water also. So I'm saying we can use the federal funds.
I have had, clean water, mentioned, which could potentially qualify for projects like this, as well as other potential resources for funding as well, through the state level. So that's something that we can, do and investigate as time goes on. But just want to let you know the process has been started, and
Possibility.
working on it as time goes on.
Good, good. Thank you.
So the 2021 voter guide is on the street. I have tried to communicate with the post office, and they were supposed to have someone contact me about what our options were in terms of mailing, but I guess we know why the post office is in the condition that they're in, because I still haven't heard from anybody, and it's been almost a week. So I'll have to, they supposedly have a salesperson that can, provide us with some options in terms of what the cost would be. But as you know, the clock is ticking. So I'm not sure that's going to be viable in terms of timing, but I'm going to check with them again tomorrow and see what happens. So, but in the meantime, we have copies printed up and starting to distribute them to different businesses and so forth for people to pick up and hopefully get a chance to review, as well as on the website and the Facebook page, etc.
Beth has a question.
Yes.
So would it be better if someone goes down to the post office then?
Well, that's what I did. I did
okay.
go to the post office. As I said, it was just a week ago, and the gal that was speaking with me wasn't totally clear about how we could handle, mailing, to the basically the local addresses, and suggested I talk with this quote unquote salesperson that they have, and gave my name and number and told them to call me, and haven't had any follow up yet. So that's why I was going to come back tomorrow in person and see what's going on.
Okay, because before I did a mailing when I first ran for, and they didn't give me a hard time at all. I just gave them the stuff, and I paid the check. That was it.
Yeah, well, that's what we were looking at, was to try to see if we could use some type of a bulk process, because we're talking probably 2,500 pieces. I don't know how many you had mailed out, but
I did to every registered voter in Northwood.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to go at 51 cents a piece. That's obviously over 1,000.
It wasn't the same. It was a less price. You had to have it like printed like on like a certain card stock and stuff. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it wasn't very expensive. I
No,
mean,
it's not. It's like $300, $400.
$300 or $400, yeah.
But again, this is a 5-page booklet,
Yeah.
Yeah, but
which has
there's criteria, and Beth's right. Well, you'll have to talk to the post office, figure it out.
It had to be like a, front and back on a certain kind of weight cardstock. So it might not be cost effective to mail a book.
Yeah.
Postcard with a QR code.
Okay.
What, Matt? I'm sorry.
Postcard with a QR code.
Yeah.
Drive everybody to the online version.
Yeah, that's true.
Did we get the link up on the Facebook page, the town?
Yes.
Can we just
That's
print
on
off?
the link.
Can we just print off a bunch of stack and leave some at the dairy bar or the diner or the hardware store on the counter? I mean, is that?
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. I know it's
Just
Hannaford, but the
in and
hard-
out.
Would there be a way to make a link though? Maybe you could even contact the school, and I mean, they have the school paper goes out every Friday. It's a virtual email school newsletter, but they do put things for the town as well. So if there's a link that they could do, and then I don't know, I figured you'd get 400 sets of parents.
Well, maybe someday we could have a town newsletter.
I know.
That's my job to say that.
No,
That's a dream.
Okay. We spent enough time on this one. If you have other suggestions for Walter, email him or text him.
Or if somebody wants to just ride around town and deliver them to one of the
That's true too.
So I just wanted to say that we are going to be hosting a employee performance evaluation training with Primex coming up in the month of June for all staff to try to get people that aren't as familiar with doing performance evaluations comfortable and learn some of the new do's and don'ts of communicating with staff in terms of their performance and so forth. So just an FYI that we're going to be doing that, and Primex has graciously agreed to actually do a single training for us on site. So
wow.
that was nice of them to do that.
Hey, Walter, on that, let us know if it makes sense. I might like to sit in on that if it's not going to cause a problem. I'd like to learn from that too, but I'll leave that up to you.
All right, we'll do. So, and then a couple of other things I wanted to mention. The Memorial Day parade is on for this Monday. The parade begins at 10 a.m. at the town offices, and will procession west down to the Congregational Church, and there the Memorial Day ceremony will be held immediately following the parade. So, Allie, I sent you an email. I'm not sure if you had a chance to read it about, I understand I got a call from Dan Barnard about having a representative of the board there to say a few words. And he said typically it's the chairman, but I didn't know if someone else wanted to do that, or if that was something you had planned on doing or whatever.
Well, I thought we weren't going to have the parade, and I made a commitment. So I won't be able to personally do that.
Nominate Matt.
We could either have the vice chair, or, it's a public appearance. We could have the two.
She's our
should be Matt.
resident.
I'll already be there marching with the rifle in my hand doing the ceremony, so I'll be preoccupied.
Yeah, Tim. Yay, Tim.
Well, how
Like
about,
27 years in a row now.
let's not put the pressure on Matt just yet, unless, Matt, you feel comfortable.
Let's give, without being political here, let's give everyone a chance to say they'd like to, which for some it may make more sense than others. And if nobody wants to, I can do it.
Okay. Beth or Pam, either one of you?
I
The
believe.
election year, girls, come on.
I believe it would be a very, very big honor. However, I'm already booked for some speeches for American Legion and another very big speech coming up. So I'm kind of busy on those, but
Yeah.
well, that'd be a very big honor to do so.
Yeah. And Beth, you don't want to either?
I'll stand next to Matt and give him a thumbs up.
Okay. Well, okay, Matt, it sounds like it's you.
Like it's me again.
Appreciate you stepping in.
Thank you.
Matt,
Thank
you did
you,
a
Matt.
good job last time. You did a nice job.
We could get you in the car. You could like wave and throw candy and stuff.
Okay.
Happy to do it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that because, like I said,
Much appreciated.
I made a commitment. So,
I do give a great speech though.
okay. What else, Walter?
So just looking at, upcoming meetings and so forth, obviously tonight's meeting, and then as we talked about voting day on June 8th at the elementary school. And then, of course, our regularly scheduled meeting for June falls on June 8th. But we would like to suggest that we don't wait until June 22nd to have the next meeting because we still have a number of abatements that need to be addressed. And those have to be out the door by July 1st. So either the 15th, which is the following Tuesday, to the 8th, or some other date that you would like to meet, could be decided either now or decided after the 8th.
I'd say we better set a date. I realize that, we don't know who's going to get elected, but I think it's better to have a date on hand, just because if we don't, and then we lose the abatements. Beth?
Would it be better to do it on the 15th and then not the 22nd, but the 29th? Since there's 5 Tuesdays that month?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Is everybody comfortable with that approach? We just shift everything back to a week?
I'm gonna keep it on Tuesdays. It works out for me better, so.
Yeah, okay. So I guess Walter, did you want to speak to that?
I'd like to confirm that meeting on the 29th, if we still have abatements remaining, will give staff enough time to get things out the door in time. That may be cutting it very close, unfortunately.
Okay, so you're really saying the 15th and the 22nd is best in terms of making sure we get the abatements out.
Yeah, there's still about 40 more that need to be, reviewed by the board and approved, and so I'm trying to get. I think Jeff is going to have them done either this Thursday or next Thursday. So
all of them.
Yeah,
I mean, it makes sense. Just that then it's 3 weeks from the June meeting to the July meeting. That's why I thought. But you know what I mean? Because it says 5 Tuesdays in June. That's why I said the 22nd and the 15th and 29th. Because if you do the 22nd, then we're not meeting in for 3 weeks in July.
How about we do this? How about we confirm we're going to meet on the 15th, try to get the abatements done, and if we don't, then we'll set the next meeting date rather than try to do all these contingencies.
Yep.
But let's see if we can't get them done, and then we'll know where we stand, and we'll also see what other things have come up in the meantime, and we can decide whether, just as Beth said, we can wait a little bit or whether we need to really come back sooner. I think that's probably the easiest. So Walter, if you could do everything possible to get them by the 15th, I think that's the main thing.
yeah. It's, as I say, it's just going to put the extra load on you folks. That's all.
Yeah, I'd rather get them done, know that they're done. As Cheryl said, the interest accrues and stuff.
Okay. We will shoot.
We're gonna get all the abatements out of the way before we go on to real estate properties this summer.
Yeah, we have a statutory deadline that we have to have the abatements responded to by July 1st. So
We're still gonna get to the
Yeah.
lots and all the other stuff this year, right? Okay.
Okay. Yep. On the list.
Yeah. Well, actually, let's just wrap that up. Anything else on your list, Walter?
Well, I just wanted to mention, in terms of, so the executive order that allows us to continue to meet electronically expires Friday. And it's likely that the governor will extend it for another 21 days, but we won't probably find that out until Thursday. So in terms of having a discussion about when we will go back to in-person meetings, et cetera, we may be forced to after the 28th because this will no longer be an acceptable method for meeting, or it may be extended for 21 days, but probably no longer than that, which would put it into into late late June, or right around July 1st, I guess, or actually late June actually. So I just wanted to bring that up, bring that to your attention, and get your thoughts on that.
Well, I think we need to make sure that the meeting room is cleaned up and ready for us one way or the other. So I guess I'd suggest doing that sooner rather than later. I guess, from a meeting in person standpoint, how does the board feel? I would assume we should follow the state guidelines. I mean, is that what you're suggesting, Walter? I mean, and you're just trying to give us a heads up that the state guidelines are going to, pretty much require then in-person meetings starting what, mid-June?
Well, potentially, like I said, I mean, the governor could decide not to renew this current order, and we would have to start, in June with the next meeting in person, because this wouldn't be a valid option. Or it could be extended, as I say, till the latter part of June. Unlikely to probably go before that. As you know, there's still legislation out there to make this an option. This electronic meeting is an option, but I'm not sure how that's going to end up. Based on the legislature's position on their own group meeting electronically.
We shouldn't plan on it.
I'll bring my shot card in. I've been double shotted, so I'm good.
I think that's really the biggest question, is how do we verify who's got their shots or not, and we'll just have to wait and see on the guidance. But I guess really what you're saying, Walter, is we should at least mentally prepare that we're going to be meeting in person, as early as possibly June.
No problem.
Potentially June 15th. Yeah.
Okay, so Tim, then Beth.
Can we get that cleaning company come in and give that one good room a big cleaning?
Yeah. The plan is Paul and I are going to kind of go through, the situation with the cameras and so forth, and see how we can get a more comfortable layout. Still be able to capture all the activities. The thought is try to conform some type of a horseshoe type of a configuration, which will
help.
Probably not give 6 feet apart, but at least give the 3 feet apart, but enough space to work with, but still be able to capture, everything on the cameras for the live stream and the video.
Okay, Beth.
So, I mean, last I knew, that room was pretty gross. It had junk everywhere. And we had talked before about, cleaning it and making it nicer. I know I have to meet with Gary still about the pictures and stuff, but would there be a chance to have it was it on a list to be painted or anything? I mean, that's something could Chris do, just the interior painting? And I mean, just before we start moving the tables and horseshoeing and if we're going to clean it, get all the junk out, would it be time to paint it so it's nice? I don't know. Just a thought.
Certainly I would recommend, getting a painting contractor if we can find one, or the prisoners, if we can get to do a couple of different projects for us. But Chris has got his hands full, so probably not something that he could get done in a timely fashion for sure.
Yeah, that's fine. Just that if I was gonna clean my house, I'd be painting the walls too. So that's how if we're gonna do it, you might as well just do it so that room is done, and that's one more thing we can check off our list for facilities.
It does need some help, that's for sure. It definitely does. Well, how about Walter, can you come back with some suggestions, recommendations for the next meeting?
Yep.
Yeah, Beth, I do have to say, I'd love to see it painted, but didn't we just put out a bid for painting and couldn't get anybody to bite on it even? So,
It's true.
Well, I mean, the highway department doesn't have time to do a paint one room inside. I don't, I mean,
It's in his job description. He can paint. I know he doesn't like to, but
I mean, I know it's just one room inside. It's not like we're saying paint the outside and stuff. I don't know.
he's got no backhoe and dump truck to work, so he must have put a paintbrush in his hand.
I was gonna say, there's also a big difference between finding someone to paint an exterior and one big room. I think we might be able to.
oh, good point. Good point. Well, let's let Walter come back with some recommendations or some guidance, but I think everybody's saying we'd like to come back to something a little bit nicer than what we got, that's for sure.
I mean, I'm here.
I don't mind going back.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll follow the guidance. I think that's, no reason not to, but,
And obviously Bob Young's word of advice, he can
Yeah.
swing by and check things out, so,
yeah,
you know.
we'll make sure we talk to him, and if we have a health officer, do that too. But
Okay.
let's start figuring out how to clean it up. What else, Walter? Anything
Paul,
else?
Paul, do you like to paint, Paul?
Okay, I'll tell you what. It's been a little while. How about we take a 3-minute break, and then we'll come back and clean up the rest of this stuff, including a non-public. So 3-minute break, please. Okay. Thank you for picking up on that message on Memorial Day, Matt. I really appreciate it because I kept thinking we weren't going to do it and scheduled something else. So
Not a problem.
And I appreciate it, Matt. I think it would have been a wonderful opportunity for me. However, for me, Memorial Day is in Bosquen.
as it is for many.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is where I need to be.
This is the first year since I moved up here that I've made other arrangements.
Yeah, I wish I'd known, and yeah,
It just didn't
my
seem like
stepdaughter and stuff. So
it just didn't seem like we were going to get out of this pandemic. I mean, quite frankly, I was getting discouraged, and
oh no, you gotta have hope. You gotta have hope.
well, there was a point where I wasn't as optimistic as I was now. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I kind of am looking forward to meetings in the building.
I am too.
You know, although the idea of reaching over for a snack out of the cupboard, I like that.
We can
Well,
have snacks at the town hall for you, Pam.
yeah, we can.
I think we're gonna have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do snacks.
Well, the thing for me is going to be, I'm going to have to probably leave another half hour to make sure I am, ready to go and drive over and stuff, and leave a little bit of time just in case something happens. And that's probably going to add at least 20 minutes to my day.
Well, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but my dinner is delivered in the middle of every meeting. That I'm going to miss that part of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss the sound quality. Is that even though I'm on delay, you guys sound loud and clear, and in the building on a recording or whatever, it doesn't sound good.
Okay, so are we ready to move on to Brenda's resignation? She did write a nice letter.
She really did.
And it's
Everybody
unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but I'm going to look for a motion. Well, first off, let's make sure we thank her for her service. Pam, do you want to speak to this?
Thank you. Brenda DiMatteo is a wonderful person, generous, kind, supporting life and transplant programs. Just a tremendous, wonderful person. She's been an asset to the zoning board for several years now. A nice, good quality person. And she has submitted a letter to us that due to ongoing personal hardships and unexpected medical issues, she's not going to be able to continue as a member of the zoning board, even in an alternative capacity. So I would like to make a motion that we accept with deep regrets Brenda's resignation from the zoning board.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, thank you. Any discussion? On behalf of the full board, thank you, Brenda. So, Pam, how do you vote?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Beth?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
And Hal is yes. Thank you very much. Okay, so now up for the library trustees, actually, both are alternates, my wife Irene and also Margaret Walker. Walter, do we need to make these motions separately or separately? Okay, can I have a motion to put Irene Kreider up for the alternate on the library trustees, please?
I'll move to appoint Irene Kreider to the position of alternate library trustee for 1 year.
Thank you. And the second? Any discussion? Walter,
does she have any references?
Well, she worked
Incredible references.
Hudson Library for many, many years, Raymond Library for many, many years, and I know she's very smart, so yes. So, Walter, you were waving your hand. Were you trying to say I need to recuse myself or anything like that?
Yes, I was.
Are you trying to say I shouldn't have made the recommendation?
Well, he didn't make the motion,
Okay.
so that's okay.
Okay, so we have a second by whom? Do we have a motion and a second by Tim? Discussion? If not, Matt, how do you vote?
Yes.
Beth?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
and I'll abstain. Okay, now I'm looking for a motion to appoint Margaret Walker as a library trustee alternate.
I move that we appoint Margaret Walker to the position, to be appointed to the position of alternate library trustee for 1 year.
Thank
Second.
you. Second, discussion. Beth, how do you vote? Did she say yes?
Didn't come through.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
kind of froze for a second.
Come on, the one time.
Tim,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and Hal is yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, as always, we have a item on the agenda to review the board task manager. This is your chance to bring up with the rest of the board anything that you'd like to see in terms of changes in priority, requests for status on certain things. So just as an example, Tim was asking about the town property sale and things like that. If people have other questions or related, or again, want to think about, pushing or changing some priorities, this is your chance to do it. Does anybody have anything in particular that they want to go over? I see Tim's got his hand up. Go ahead, Tim.
Do we accept Jimmy Wilson's resignation, or how does that work?
You didn't submit,
Good question. Walter, how do we handle that?
you didn't submit one.
Okay,
You just put.
okay.
Okay.
And I get, I don't know if this was the time, but I know Chris put the signs up on Bull Lake Road for no parking, for the sporting events and stuff. A lot of them are starting to grow in. Maybe we could just weed whack or trim the trees or, the bushes around it so they stick out more. The leaf, the branches are starting to bend over those signs. So if Chris got a couple seconds with a chainsaw or just, hand snippers to run up and clean those signs up so people can still go on it. Thanks, buddy.
He's got his thumb up on that one. Well, first off, anything else on the task manager? If not, we will move into committee reports or any other board reports. So Pam? Yes, she's got her hand
Thank
up.
you, Hal. Yeah, thank you, Hal. On the task manager, the Bow Street Route 4, that info with the state, should that be on the task manager, or is that just off to the side right now?
You're talking about the drainage issue, Pam?
Yes.
I thought that was really handled in Walter's weekly report. Is that something you feel we should put on?
Kind of pending. Well, it's pending DOT, and I just don't want to let it fall off into Never Land.
You can certainly add that.
Just to have it on that
Yeah.
we do need information on that.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I think that's a good point. Anything else? If not, then I'm going to move on to committee reports. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to report back at this point? Matt, and then Tim.
I'll just make a quick report from Recreation. We are on the verge of having a playground. It's really happening. Equipment is being delivered. We are planning on our community build starting June 9th, which is starting to feel really quickly. And we're happy to have Scott Blewett on board to run point on this project, but we're still looking for some folks to jump in and help out either on the construction side or just the support side. So anybody who wants to, bake delicious baked goods or anything for those out there digging holes and stuff, reach out to anybody on the Recreation Commission or myself or Scott, the Recreation Director. We'd be happy to have all the help that's being offered.
Hey, just a related question, if I could, Matt, or maybe Walter. Did Scott set up any regular hours to be in the office? Because I was thinking about stopping in and just saying hi, and and I realized I don't know what time to go in.
So right now he's in on Mondays and Wednesdays.
Okay,
He's, again, he's not in the office all that time. He's out
Sure.
and about doing things as well, but, you might want to,
give him a heads up. Yeah.
but he should be in tomorrow morning.
Oh, okay. He is in tomorrow morning?
Should be.
Okay. Okay, real good. Anybody else want to speak to anything? Okay, if not, then I'm going to open it back up for citizens forum. Does anybody want to speak? Did any calls come in or anything like that? Emails? No, if not, then I know we need to go into non-public for hiring. Is there anything else, Walter?
Actually, yes, A, B, and C.
Okay, so we're going in for all three, huh?
Yes, we got 3 different.
Personnel, hiring, and reputation. Okay, do I have a motion to go into non-public for 91A ... A, B, and C?
So moved.
Thank you. Second by Tim. Roll call vote. Tim,
Yes.
Matt, oh, excuse me, Pam,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Beth,
Yes.
and Hal is yes. Tim, did you have a question on?
Switching over for Matt take over, and are we coming back out for the public? No?
I would assume we would come back out.
At least to adjourn.
Pardon,
Okay.
Walter?
At least to adjourn.
Yeah. Okay, so do you think Paul needs to stick around? I guess we can do this pretty quickly. What's your thought, Walter? Have Paul stick around?
I don't think he needs to stick around.
Okay, so then Paul, if you'd pass on the controls to Matt, and then Matt, when we're ready, we'll go into non-public.
Last time Matt couldn't turn on the YouTube to get back on, so we might have to keep Paul, right? Matt?
My thought is if we're going back live just to adjourn, we don't necessarily need to live stream it.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, that's probably true. Well, let's see. Let's give him another shot at it.
So am I all set to turn off the live stream right now?
I couldn't quite understand, Paul.
We're all set.